And we're rolling. I'm not going to surprise you. I do that to a lot of people where I feel like you're more switched on because you just said that you've watched a couple, so I'm probably not going to be able to pull the wool over your eyes. But anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to Luton and Dunstable podcast with me, Luton and Dunstable, and my special guest today, Tim Archbold. Is it Archbold?
That's correct. Yeah,
Archbold. That's it. So yeah, Tim is your CEO of. I should have read my notes properly before I started this. You're CEO of Signposts, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Great, I got that right. So yeah, tell us a little bit about Signposts, what they do, where they've been from, and like the history and what it means for Signposts in Luton. So the floor.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Firstly, thank you for inviting me on your podcast, Paul. It's a true honour to be speaking with you this morning. So Signposts, we've been in operation, I think it's about 37 years now. We started in the 80s. A group of concerned Lutonians got together, wanting to do something to try and tackle the problem of homelessness the town was encountering at that time. Started with just one building, and we've now grown. We now have 12 buildings that we operate from across Luton, Dunstable and Houghton Regis, and we provide supported accommodation to anybody, and we say absolutely anybody who's experiencing homelessness in our towns. That's what we're here for. We hope to then move people through to some settled accommodation of their own beyond that. Why me? I'm Tim. I've been working here at Signposts now nearly 7 years. Prior to that, I worked for the local authority, Luton Borough Council, for 2 years in their commissioning team, working with the drug and alcohol team. And then prior to that, I spent 5 years working for Noah Enterprise.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know you've got Noah link as well.
Yeah, I was at Noah for 5 years. So that's for the last 13, 14 years now. I've been working in the homeless sector in Luton, and seen quite a lot happen over this.
Yeah, I bet. So what motivates you to wanting to work with homeless people?
So it's started through personal experience, lived experience. So I'm a recovered alcoholic addict, and I came into recovery 15 years ago next week. And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And when I came into recovery, I originally wanted to work in the drug and alcohol sector. You needed to have a period of sobriety before you could do that. So Noah were looking for somebody at the time. I had been a client, a service user of Noah, and the lights are automatic.
There we go. I've just got to wave every now and then.
So just to let you know, everyone, every 5 to 10 minutes we're going to be
manic. They're a green company. They're power saving. That's important.
Exactly. So so I applied for a job with Noah. They were looking for a resettlement officer. Homelessness wasn't really the sector that I saw myself going into at that time, but there was a job. I got the job, and it became part of who I am through that, really, I guess.
Yeah.
So I still have been able to work with people who experienced the same issues that I did. I mean, I had periods of homelessness through my addictions, so it makes sense, I guess. Yeah. If I think back to my personal lived experience, I was in the early to mid 1990s. I had a period of homelessness in London, and I ended up in a homeless hostel then, and it was not a pleasant experience. And I vowed I would never go back into a hostel again. And later in the 2000s, when I came back to living in Luton, I had another period of homelessness. And I didn't go to the hostels. And I think so now that I work for an organisation that provides some hostel accommodation, I'm able to have some influence on how they operate.
That's really good. Thinking about, like you say, about your lived experience within that community, you've got valuable insight into what it feels like to be that person. So I always believe like the people who should be there making them decisions should be the ones that have been affected by it as well, because they're going to know the hardcore facts of what works and what doesn't work, and like you say, through what you've been through, you're now able to actually impact this positively now. So yeah, like, what do you see as being the issues that you face in the past, and how have you tried to deal with them now?
Ooh, so if we talk about homelessness, I think the issues I faced was I wasn't able to live life. I wasn't able to manage life. Life had become unmanageable for me. So the basic, I mean, I can cook, I can iron, I can do laundry, I can do all of those things. But the things I really struggled with were, this is great, a CEO sitting here saying this, but I struggled with my personal finances. I really struggled with that. And so unless I had a partner, a girlfriend or wife, I really struggled to manage those household finances, and very quickly it would unravel for me. And that's because I had addictions to both alcohol and drugs. Those would always be the priority for me as well. So I'd always spend my money on those before the rent or the whatever it might be. And that's how I ended up homeless, on the occasions that I ended up homeless. And there's been a few in my life. I'm 53 now, and I've probably experienced homelessness 3 or 4 times in my life. I've slept on the streets a couple of times, and it's tough.
It's crazy to see you here now. Like, I find it fascinating when someone has come from such a horrible place of pain and suffering and trauma, and the ability to pull yourself out of that, and then to be sat in a position where you are now, where not only are you doing well for yourself in your personal life, but you're actually impacting people positively as well through what happened to you. It's just wonderful. It gives me so much hope in such a dark world that we currently live in. Things look so bleak at the moment. If you listen to the media, and you spend all day scrolling on TikTok or Twitter or whatever, it looks horrible. But then when you see someone like yourself, you've been at the bottom, like, there's no question about it, and you done something. You like what is it, what made you, like, where was the point when you was like, okay, enough's enough?
Yeah, there's a lot spoken about rock bottom
Yeah,
in this field. So you have to reach a rock bottom to be able to come back up again. Now, I personally don't believe that that's a physical rock bottom, because there were points in my life where I don't think physically and the environment I was living in could have got any worse, other than maybe prison, which I avoided more by luck than judgment, probably.
yeah,
However, I do feel there's a kind of like a spiritual, almost an emotional, spiritual rock bottom that you reach,
yeah,
where you've just done, you just can't do this anymore. And I believe everybody has that moment. I'd like to think of it as maybe a moment of clarity, that moment
yeah,
of clear vision where you can actually see this is not working for me anymore. And that's the point where, given the right intervention at that time, you can grow. So you mentioned AA to me earlier in
yeah,
the conversation before starting, and it was through AACA that I found recovery. So it was through going to a fellowship of people that were experiencing or had experienced the same things that I had experienced, made me realise that I wasn't alone, and that actually I wasn't just some kind of Roman who was just unable to
yeah,
stop taking drugs. That actually I had an illness.
yeah,
I have an illness of which I can recover, but will never be cured of. So I have to live a life of abstinence.
yeah,
So I don't, and I haven't drunk or taken drugs for, like I say, nearly 15 years.
yeah. That is honestly the biggest achievement. I can't stress. You know, I know so many of my friends who have that kind of addictive personality where, it's just not ever enough. You know what I mean? And they need to go that step further. You can't just have a beer on a Sunday watching the football, because it will turn into a week long period of ruining themselves. and that could then just escalate even more. And I really commend people who can see that in themselves and can say, okay, because I have that as well, and I have to be very careful with how much I drink, and if the settings that I drink in, that's my problem. If I drink with certain people, then my gosh, I'll ruin myself. I will absolutely ruin myself. I've got to be careful when I go to see my friend in Ireland.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely identify. When I laugh, it's because I'm identifying, because a lot of my history is connections with Ireland through my first wife.
Oh,
and,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
and I used to go over there, and yes, it was messy.
Yeah, yeah.
I lived and worked in London for most of my 20s and early 30s, working in pubs in northwest London, in the Irish pubs in Kilburn, Cricklewood, and Ralston, and so yeah,
Yeah,
I know
exactly what.
exactly what you.
Yeah.
So we go back to the spell coming into the fellowship and having that kind of camaraderie around
Yeah,
me of not being alone, that really gave me the, I guess, the inspiration to come into recovery.
yeah,
I went through the 12 steps relatively quickly coming into the program. Once I did that, that obsession to drink and use drugs was lifted, and it's never returned since.
wow,
But it doesn't mean life's easy.
yeah,
And like I said earlier, learning to live life has been tough. Learning to manage life has been tough.
yeah,
But I'm getting there.
yeah,
I don't know that anybody ever gets it totally sussed.
yeah,
We all make mistakes. We
yeah,
all get it wrong sometimes, and that's okay, as long as I learn from those and I develop from those, and I learn a better way of doing things. And I guess that's how I've managed to get to this position today, is just by doing that, by seeing how others behave in this role that I have, and adapting my style to how I always wanted my CEOs to behave around me, I guess.
yeah. No, it makes sense.
That's kind of.
I've just realised I haven't put my phone in airplane mode. I do this all the bloody time. It's still rolling. Don't worry. I'm such an idiot. Let me take my glove off. This is such a joke. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm an absolute amateur, and I am getting better. But this is the one thing that I keep messing up every single time. But I'm in the best place to mess up, because
Exactly.
here at Signposts, you really do take that thought of people that make mistakes on people who are hopeless and that you can't help. I think that's an even more commendable part of what this place does, is that the one problem with when you're dealing with these kind of problems in your life is criticism from other people, right? Mm-hmm. Rightly so, you should be criticized to a certain degree, but it doesn't actually help you after, like, at first, your first couple of times you make a mistake and you get criticized for it. Yeah, okay, it can possibly be a bit of help, but if you've been in a hole where you don't care about anything but the fix, yeah, if you're in that, criticism isn't going to help at that point. All it does is drive you closer to it. I find I've done a lot of research into this myself about, because like I say, I've got a lot of friends that have fallen by the wayside with this problem, and it really stresses me out that people are just giving up on. And I always try to be the friend that doesn't turn my back on that person, if they have had a problem with drink or drugs, or if they've been arrested or they've been violent, or whatever's happened to them. I try my best not to turn my back on them, because I understand that this is the point in their life where they're going to have everyone turn their back on them, and if that happens, that makes it so much harder. Like you mentioned, camaraderie in the AA, and I believe in that so much. Having people by your side who understand you, who don't judge you, with that in place, you've got a support system, and you've got so much better of a chance. If you don't have that in place, you're only going to keep falling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. And to pick up on that point, I think for me, addiction is, there's plenty of evidence that states that trauma is a precursor to addiction. It doesn't say if you experience early life trauma, you're going to become an addict. But what it does say is if you're an addict, it's highly likely that you've experienced some kind of early life trauma. You might not recognize that now because our mind has very good ways of protecting ourselves from that.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point that will come out and you will understand that. The other part of it is that trauma triggers within us as addicts a real lack of self-worth and low self-esteem. So we already think very low of ourselves. We're very self-critical people. And so anybody who comes along who comes to either validate or continue to re-emphasize that, it's not going to help at all. It's just going to, as you say, it's going to push people away. It's going to push them, drive them further into the grips of their addiction. I also fully believe that we have to have an environment where it's, so we call it a signpost psychological safety. It's not that we've made that term up. It's known as that.
Mm-hmm.
Psychological safety for us at Signposts is yes, it's about being able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and have plenty of reflection within the organisation to make sure that's done in a constructive and challenging way. But then what's also important is, I'm the chief exec and I've got a brain. And I've worked in organisations before where that chief exec brain has then been the brain that tells every other person what to do. Very directive leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have 50 or 60 people working in a team and they're all getting, so you've got one brain telling 60 brains what to do. I believe here I'm better off in an organisation where we've got 61 brains.
There you go.
Working and making decisions, because Signpost isn't huge. We're not a massive organisation, but we're not small either. As I mentioned, we've got a dozen buildings. We've got 4 or 5 teams that work within Signposts, and they all experience different issues at different times. And if they're looking for me to make the decisions, and it's going to come up the line to me, we've all done Chinese whispers. So first of all, the message that comes to me is going to be different to what's actually happened.
Yeah.
And then the instruction I pass down is going to be different to what's actually happened.
Yeah.
Plus there's the time, plus I'm not the right person to be making that decision. I fundamentally believe that where the problem is where the decision needs to be made.
Yeah.
And the people who are closest to that are the ones who are best
they understand it the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now they might make a decision that doesn't give them the outcome that they were looking for. That is what I want them to be safe to do.
Yeah.
Because I want them to
So you're about empowering people.
Yeah, really. Absolutely. Because that's how they'll grow.
Yeah.
And become, so Signpost shouldn't be just me as the leader and everybody does what I say. It should be Signpost is a group of leaders that are helping people.
Yeah.
And if we do that, then we're going to be far more effective in what we do. The other flip side of that is, so none of us come into work wanting to be ridiculed or made to feel stupid or to make mistakes. None of us want to feel, we all hate that feeling. So quite often we might not say what we really think.
Yeah.
May not give ideas because we think what we're going to say doesn't tally with what the CEO wants to have happen.
Yeah.
So you can start to get a culture where people come and tell me what they think I want to hear.
Yeah.
Now I know what I've got up here and I know what my ideas are and I know what my thoughts are. I don't need anyone to come and tell me what those are. What I need is people to come and tell me what their thoughts are, to challenge my thoughts.
Exactly.
Because if we get that, then, because there's bound to be the occasional solution that I haven't got, that they have. In fact, probably more often than not, that's the case. So that's why I want psychological safety in our organisation. And I say our organisation because it is Signpost. It's not me.
Yeah.
Signpost isn't about Tim. Can't ever be about Tim. And the day that it is the day I need to go and do something different, because it's the organisation that's important. Does that?
That is just such a beautiful way of looking at it and managing people at scale.
Yeah, everything I do has to be what's best for signposts.
Yeah.
And for me, signposts are the people who work alongside me and the people that we work alongside to support.
Yeah.
That's what signposts is. We don't make widgets, but we do work with people, and every single person is different.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So there's not one size fits all. So for me, that's the core of what we try and do here. And do we do it effectively and well? In pockets, yes. Is there stuff that we need to do better? Always. But I'm trying to be a little bit more recognizing of what we do really well, and we'll concentrate on the other bits in a healthy way.
Yeah.
We can be very good at saying, "Oh, we didn't do that, we didn't do this, and we don't do that, and this isn't that." That can be quite negative then, and then that brings the whole sort of
it's true.
Down,
it's true. Yeah, I believe in that as well. I think that whenever you're working at something, if you only ever focusing on the negative aspects of what you're doing, the negative aspects of what you're doing, it's going to drive that as the new culture in your office space. Whereas if the thoughts that you have are all about the positive things that you're doing, then the negative things that you're doing, you will enter with a positive mindset and you'll be better suited to deal with the problem rather than, often when we think about things negatively, it makes it bigger. The problem's bigger. Do you know what I mean? When you think of it in a positive way, like, it's like the crying about spilled milk sort of thing, right? You can cry about it and it's just spilled milk at the end of the day, or you can laugh at it and be like, oh, I messed up. And if you see it like that, you're going to get down and clean it quicker than what you will if you're having a meltdown because you just spilled the milk.
Absolutely. And actually, this is something that my predecessor told me when I first started working at Signposts. And he said, look, no mistake can't be fixed. And that stuck with me. It doesn't matter what mistake anyone makes, there's always a solution to it.
Yeah.
It might take work, it might take pain, it might take some money, but we can always fix a problem. We can always fix it. So with that, if you've got that in your mind, it's that much more liberating.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden, actually, nothing we ever do is not fixable. Yes, we work in environments that are really, really traumatic. We see that trauma that our clients experience on a daily basis. The teams that I work with here see so much, as do others in this town. This town is facing huge issues at the moment.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about actually with you, because you come from an area with extreme insight into this world, and it's something that always bothers me. I'm out collecting for different charities, obviously over the half terms, and when I'm out there with my bucket, a lot of the time, by the way, I mention this a lot on the podcast, the people who are the biggest contributors to my bucket are homeless. They give so much. It's wonderful, and that should, in that on its own, I keep trying to tell people that, because every time I tell people that, they can't believe it. They think I'm just making it up to be nice, but it's genuinely true. Anyone at Luton Town Council, you've got the cameras, you can see for yourself how many times they come up to me in the course of a week. But at the same time, there is a problem. I try to be positive all the time as best as I can. But with the homeless issue in Luton at the moment, it is scary and it's not nice. And I don't want to see people in this situation. So I want to help. I don't know how I can help. I do the best that I can by raising awareness and stuff like that. But, I don't have the understanding of the problem because I don't work in it. And I only talk to you. I've got good understanding because I talk to them when they come and donate, obviously. But I see them for what they are, not as homeless people. They're people that have names, like my friend Jax, who's he's got his dog, and so many other people out there who I see on a daily basis they're not bad people.
No, not at all.
But why is this happening? I know that's a big question. I'm all about big questions.
How many parts is this podcast? Okay. Why is it happening? It goes back to that early life trauma. That's why it's happening. Okay,
Yeah.
so what we're seeing now are the people who experience rough sleeping or homelessness within our town are people who have had those, whatever scale, those early life traumas. Okay, so that's that we know that that's the pipeline. That's where it comes from. How do we stop that? I'll come back to in a second. But looking at the problems we have now in our town are, I love that you say that they're some of the greatest people you meet. You know
Yeah.
what? Like I said, I've worked in this sector in this town now for quite a few years, and I've seen a lot of people come through the services that I've been had the privilege to work with, and some of the talents these people have are phenomenal,
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal. You know, the amount of resilience, entrepreneurialism um, it takes to live on the streets.
Yeah.
You know,
To survive like that, that's a
totally.
different
There are
level. Yeah.
business leaders in this country that haven't got as much mouse about them as the
Yeah.
people we work with. You know,
Yeah.
if you think of people like anybody who's involved in drug dealing or any of those sort of criminal activities, which obviously aren't to be,
Yeah. We're not like trying to promote any of
not
that,
saying that.
of course, but
However,
no, you,
the level of business
the
mind
ingenuity that it takes.
it
Yeah.
takes to be able to manage that is so if those people can actually find a way to channel that, I guess to some extent, I'm an example of many who have done that,
Yeah.
have been able to do that. That actually you can,
Yeah. You can come
there's
from a
you
life
can,
where you're fighting for survival
because the
on a
talent is
daily
there.
basis. It's a wonderful talent,
The talent
and
is there.
you know some people that I know who obviously I will not name for obvious reasons, but they this is the kind of life that they've chosen almost. And my gosh, if you just went and sold cars, you'd be a millionaire. Do you know what I
If
mean?
I can challenge the chosen, because I think when it comes to these things, the element of choice is taken away from people.
Okay, yeah,
And there's
yeah. Maybe it's
always,
unfair for me to say that.
because I think actually it's very easy for the community as a whole to turn around and say they're they're druggies, they're junkies, they're
Yeah,
this, they're that. It's their choice, it's their lifestyle choice. All of these sort of phrases that get bandied about, which are absolutely false, because the actual reality is that these individuals are in so much pain that the only way they can survive is by numbing that self-medication
yeah,
through using substances. And
yeah,
once you start using those substances, that element of choice goes
yeah,
pretty rapidly, and it becomes a need.
yeah,
And actually, there's no element of choice to it.
yeah,
There are some great services in Luton, fantastic services in Luton, and if we're ever going to fix this problem, come up. I don't know that we'll ever be able to. Obviously, my personal ambition is that we end up with a town that ends homelessness and doesn't have homelessness, and I don't have to work in this job to do it.
yeah,
The reality is, you know, we only have to think back 3 years ago when we were in the grips of that pandemic, and we were seeing the levels of poverty in our town and the
yeah,
issues that the young people in our town were having around their schooling. Um, that's the future problem for us as a service. You know, those, as I said, those early life adverse experiences
yeah,
will translate to some people, not everyone, but to some people, to the problems we see in our streets now. So there is going to be a problem in the future. But what we can do now is homelessness is not a problem that you or I or any one organisation can fix. It's a community problem.
yeah,
And then, like so many of the problems in our town, it's a community. The solution lies within the community. Okay.
yeah,
So what we're doing within homelessness is we've created the Luton Homeless Partnership, so that all of the charities and other organisations that have anything to do with homelessness in our town come together, and we're trying to work together to create a system that does three things. So the partnership's three driving principles, I guess, as they are. We're going through a refresh, but as they are now, are to raise awareness around the problem, to break down those myths and to disprove some of the things that get bandied around about homelessness. The next one then is to bring the spirit of co-production to everything we do. So everything we do should have the voice of the client behind it.
Yeah.
It should really be driven by them. If we think of any business in the world, look at Apple, for example, they listen to their customer feedback and they develop the products that they know their customers want. So why would we be any different? Why should we be sitting here creating a homelessness system that we think the government know best, or local authorities know best, or signposts know best? It's the people who are living it now know best.
And then because of that, the situation's forever changing, right?
Exactly.
So because of that, you can't ever really always rely on the people that work within the places, because then the longer that you're in this position, for instance, the further away you've now become from
15 years.
Yeah,
15
exactly.
years since I was experiencing that life.
Yeah.
So it's changed. So as much as I have lived experience, and yes, that empathy with how people feel and how they live their lives, but the reality of what they need, I'm so far removed from that now that actually
the world's a different place as well.
Totally.
My gosh, so crazy. 15 years ago, that was around when the iPhone came out.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what the world of homelessness, because people have phones, and people that are home. This is the thing that people were surprised about. There's a lot of homeless people that have phones and stuff, and they struggle with charging the phones, but they have phones, and to have that bit of social media, and it can be a source of hope, or that could be a source of despair as well. And the negative consequence of being on social media, if you're someone that's coming from a disadvantaged place and maybe you're getting bullied because of it as well, that's an added pressure now. So the landscape's completely changed, and your ability to understand that and to be like, look, I need to get the information from them people, not from the so-called authority figures who claim to have some sort of hidden knowledge about what the problem is. You're right. That's the source of information. It's often the problem that we find in areas of life, in politics now. Like, there's people currently presiding in our government who are making decisions for people who are disadvantaged, and they haven't lived a day in their life of need. Exactly. They've gotten everything they've ever wanted, and they come from a great deal of privilege, and because of that, they're not going to understand the problems. It's just as simple as that. It's not to be disrespectful to that person, say they don't have a good intention or good heart. They're just not going to know. And the further away that you are from it, if you don't have that empathy and that connection like you do, I actually think you're going to cause more harm than good.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I'm picking up on that privilege. So although I have had experiences in my life that helped me to have empathy with the people that we work for alongside, I also recognize that I have had privilege in my life as well.
Yeah.
I am white, I am British, I am middle class, and I am a male.
Yeah.
And those things do afford me a level of privilege that I'm not suggesting I need to be ashamed of that, but I need to be mindful of that and recognize that in everything that I do.
Well, do you know what's funny? It's like most people that you'll meet, if you tell them what your position is, what you're doing now, they're going to hold you in a certain light, and they're going to think that your life has been very easy. That's what they're going to think of you. And then when you tell them the other side of it, they're not going to know what to think anymore.
People say, I don't believe you. I don't believe that 15 years ago you were living in a crack house on Old Bedford Road. And ironically, 3 doors down from the old Signposts head office where I first.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that's how the journey just intermingles. So the third part of the partnership then is about partnership, and is about saying how no one organisation or person can do this on their own, and that actually, as a community across our town, if we all want to see this problem get better, then we need to work together to do that, because we all have a part to play in that, whether it's charities providing the services and the support and the safety net for people that are going to fall into the problem, or whether it's the community providing whatever skills or knowledge they might have, or whether it's local businesses helping with funding. So the reality is, our local authority, our council, they're strapped for cash.
They are. Yeah, it's true.
And it's not just the local authority's problem, although people always look at the local authority for the solution. It's not, they are.
Well, the funny thing is you'll look to them for the solution, but at the same time, we'll all moan about them for not knowing what they're doing. Exactly. So why would you go? It's like, you know, your house is on fire. You're not going to call for an ambulance. You know what I mean? You're going to call for a fire engine. And it's like in this situation, like you say, this is a community problem. This isn't a government problem. There is something wrong fundamentally in communities.
However,
right?
It is a problem that can be exacerbated through policy decisions.
Of course.
And I think we do have, without being too political about it, we do have a government that some of their policy decisions are drivers to this problem.
Yeah.
And the pandemic taught us something, that actually, if there's a will to do something, this country can do it.
Yeah.
So given the political will and the financial will, there's always money if they want to find money.
Yeah.
You know, there's always money if they want to find money. If the will's there to solve a problem, they can do it. At the beginning of that pandemic, the order came out to get everybody off the streets, to keep them safe. And it happened. And Luton was one of the quickest in the country to achieve that, getting everybody into temporary accommodation. And we also managed to prevent most of those people going back on the street. So it was a real success story that really needs to be shouted out about, because actually, prior to the pandemic, we had in the region of 80 to 90 people on a given night sleeping on the streets of Luton. We're now at a place where you're looking at 10 to 12.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a significant shift. And there was that pandemic, everybody in, that shifted that. Yeah. Okay, there's other things such as Brexit that may have slowed the flow of people coming into the town, but it's still a predominant issue. So my message is, we can fix this. We can find solutions for this. It just needs to be a will from everybody who wants to do that. And if that comes, then we can do it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, my job and others like me's job is to develop a system that actually meets the needs of the people that it's trying to serve. Because for too many years we've tried to be careful with my words here a little bit, but I guess it can be very quick to become a system that feeds itself.
Yeah.
You know, it creates problems to solve problems.
Yeah, no,
that's not saying that was ever an intention.
No, I know what you mean. So there are some charities that I've been made aware of where they are almost stopping fixing the problem, because then that would mean their roles wouldn't exist anymore. And I think that ultimately, this is the way that a charity should see itself. Is it should see itself as there should be an end point.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we have a core objective, which is obviously to support people who are experiencing tough times.
Yeah.
And that's what. So anything we do as an organisation has to have that that thread running through it, because otherwise we get mission drift and we start doing things that really aren't about what
because I think that when you've got an organisation like yourselves, the core goal has to be to end homelessness, right? Yeah, I know that's the big goal, but so you don't focus on that too much because it's so big. But the more money that you guys get, the more attention you guys get, the more likely you get to achieving that goal. But unfortunately, there are places. I don't find it within the homeless charities sort of area in this town. Definitely not. Everyone I speak to from each different charity, they've all got this kind of same mentality, and I can tell that you guys are working together because it's like you're all thinking the same way in what your goals are, and it fills me with a lot of hope. But like I say, there's a couple out there, different charities that do different things where they've actively suppressed information which would have meant that they wouldn't be necessary.
Well, that's counterintuitive in my opinion. So, like I said, homelessness isn't going to go away, but what we can do is we can create a system that manages it, that creates pathways for people out of it.
Yeah.
And in that case, there'll always be a role for organisations like Signposts to do it well.
Yeah.
With regards to the partnership, I talk regularly and I have very close relationships with the CEOs of the other organisations that do the same thing as we do. We work together, we collaborate together, we support each other, we help each other out all the time. And that's so refreshing for me. You know, I hate all the sort of, because over the years there has been tension between organisations.
Competition almost, right?
Yeah. And so my personal view is we should be moving away from that.
Yeah.
We should be creating a commissioning structure that means that there's a little bit for everybody rather than trying to see who's this month's best.
Yeah, exactly. That should be the way that it's looked at. It shouldn't be like a ranking system or anything like that. It should be looked upon what service you're providing, right? And that's kind of it. And then everyone should be equally funded, depending on how much of a service they provide. The more service you provide, the better your funding should be. Do you know what I mean? It should be so absolutely basic. But then it shouldn't be that if this person gets more funding than you can't get more because there's only so much in the pot. Do you know what I mean? It should be that if you're doing this service and then that person starts doing the same level as you both get the same level of money. You know what I mean? And that stops that famine mentality that unfortunately does exist within, you know, I've spoke again, I won't name any of the charities. It's none of the ones that I currently work with or anything, because personally I would not work with a charity that has this mentality, because it doesn't work for me. But where they're having to win favour from another charities, like sponsors, like people that sponsor them, and they're essentially trying to take away from that charity. And it's like for me when I'm out in the street and I'm fundraising, right, and I've got my bucket, and if someone comes along and they're fundraising something else, do you know what I do? I say, how about you stay on this bit and I'll move a bit further down, so we're not so close that then people will donate to you and go, I'm not going to donate to him, and then vice versa to you, because ultimately I might be raising for a different charity for you than you are, but we're both trying to do good, so let's help each other. And that's my mentality, and I'm so glad that that's your mentality as well.
And I think it's most people's. You know, you might pick the odd person who's driven by ego, but I think most of us are driven by the greater good. And like I say, it comes back to Signposts. It's about the organisation, not about me. It can't ever be about me. It always has to be about what's best for Signposts. And if I have that in mind in every decision I make, then we're going in the right way. We're going in the right way.
I want to talk about, let me just check, hold on a second, before I do this, just in case. Okay, that's perfect timing. So obviously, if you don't want to talk about this, we can cut this bit out, entirely. But this is like one of my core beliefs as to one of the things that would massively aid people that are dealing with homelessness, right? Drug addiction is a huge problem, and we have some very draconian laws in place, I believe, when it comes to drug addiction and drug use for people. I see a lot of stuff from other countries out in the world where they don't treat drug addiction as a criminal offence, and they actually have safe houses where people can take clean needles, and you know, they don't have to worry about being in debt to a drug dealer. And what you're seeing in these countries is homelessness is going down and drug use is going down as well. And it's almost like the two things are completely linked together. Now, I'm not an expert. I can't say what's right or wrong. From my point of view as a concerned citizen, it seems like our drug laws are completely outdated. I will never ever promote drug use. It's not something that I'm going to say I agree with or I disagree with. I think that it's a personal choice for everybody, and people make personal choices all the time, what the government doesn't get involved with, right? And I think that this is one of those things that the government shouldn't be getting involved with. I think that having someone get a police record as well as a drug addiction is not good. That does not help that person. That just stops them getting a job now. That stops them from, maybe if they were like someone that works with children, they can't work with children anymore. You know, for me, I think that that's a core part of the problem. And if we could amend some laws, maybe the problem would go down significantly. But again, I'm not an expert, so you are. So what do you think about that?
Or expert, strong word.
Well, you know what I mean.
So, a caveat everything I'm going to say now, as
Yeah.
this is Tim's opinion, not
Signpost
Signpost's
opinion, okay.
Signpost is an organisation that works primarily to end homelessness, so drugs is not our...
Yeah, that's not where your focus is.
Although it is part of what we work with. Having said that, on my personal experience and what have you, I fundamentally agree with everything you said. Absolutely safe using houses would be wonderful. Controlled drug issuing would be wonderful. I think for the majority of addicts, it would be the step that would really help them to move towards some kind of recovery. The criminalisation of addicts is counterintuitive, because all you do is you just send them into an environment where they just learn to do things differently. I'm not saying necessarily better, but just learn new ways of making money.
Yeah.
And it just breeds a criminal community, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's so unfair. The injustice in it is what really annoys me and upsets me and hurts me, because I'm certain if I had a slightly different upbringing, or if my skin was a different colour, my outcomes would have been a lot different to what they are today.
Oh yeah.
And that injustice is just wrong, and I cannot abide with that. I hate that, and these laws just perpetuate that, because they just the war on drugs was lost a long time ago.
Yeah.
And what we see now, in Luton now, is the levels of violence that come with this now, because there's so much money to be made from it.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much money to be made from it that it's quite scary.
Well, we have a problem with county lines in Luton as well, massively.
So all of that sort of stuff, so you've got the local gangs going against the county lines gangs and all that sort of stuff. It's touched our doors at Signposts. And it's quite scary.
We've lost a lot of young men.
We have.
We've lost a lot of young men. This is a part of it as well, what doesn't ever get spoken about, right? Is that it disproportionately affects young men.
Yes.
And there are so many bright and talented young boys and boys that have lost their lives because of this. And the amount of stabbings that have been going on, and and the thing is, they're not always reported on. I mean, I had a friend who he witnessed a machete attack outside his house, where a young man, no older than 16, was hit on his leg, and it was just gushing out. The poor boy. My friend came along and he made a tourniquet for him, and he managed to stop the bleeding. Very, very lucky. The boy was crying out for his mum. It was horrible. It was a vicious attack. When his boys turned up, they wanted to then go and get these people back. So now another war has started between two factions, right? And the whole thing's about drugs. The whole thing's about drugs. And this young boy, my friend saved him at that moment, but he doesn't know what happened to him after that. I searched in the news for it for like weeks afterwards. Not once it was reported. And it's hard when you call up the L&D to check if someone's okay. They can't really give you details about what's going on. So I don't know what happened to him. And that's one story. That was horrific. Like, he's got it all on his doorbell cam from when it happened. So, there's plenty of evidence there to what happened. But at the same time, just none of it got reported. And it just shocks me that that's the kind of place where we live. And to know that there are big stories when it's out in public. And, there was one recently where it happened in broad daylight. There was one a few years ago where it happened in the mall. I've seen it myself, like being out like this. I actually stopped someone getting stabbed at one point when these two lads were chasing after each other, and I managed to get the knife off the guy. It was very like I never ever do anything that stupid again. I've had to promise a lot of friends and family that I won't do anything like that again, because I might look like a superhero, but I'm bloody not a superhero. I think I am. Maybe that's the problem, but I seeing it firsthand multiple times now. You know, the problem that I find though as well with talking about taking away the drug laws of what they are currently and just decriminalising. This is all I'm saying. I'm not saying legalise everything.
No.
Decriminalise everything.
There are ways to do it in a safe way.
Yeah.
That's managed
and if you have all the centres set up,
exactly.
You've got therapy set up for people. It can work. It does work out there in the world in much worse places. You know, we think that Luton's bad, but there's places in Portugal before they had the drug laws decriminalised that were far worse that you cannot even possibly imagine. We think that we live in some sort of ghetto place or wherever. That is nothing compared to some of the places out there in the world. And Portugal's reversed it quite heavily. Same within Sweden, I think it is, and Norway. And they were having those sort of problems. Obviously, different cultural backgrounds, but
so you find a way that works for Britain, don't you? And
yeah,
that's the way to do it. Obviously, behind it all, there's so much corruption and all this. So that's a whole pod on its own. But yeah, on that point, I fundamentally would agree with you. Yeah, let's find a way that can do this safely.
Yeah,
and doesn't compromise the integrity around it, but also makes it safer for our citizens.
Exactly. And disclaimer, once again, those are Tim's opinions and only Tim's opinions. And these are my opinions. They are not Deadpool's opinions. No, but I do appreciate you giving your point of view on that. It's something that bothers me a lot. And I've talked to many people. You know, I talked privately to police officers about it. They all agree as well. You know, they can't come out and say it, obviously, but they all agree. I've talked to politicians. They agree. I don't know what's stopping this, but, you know, hopefully me talking about it now, you talking about it now, hopefully this opens up the conversation a little bit more for other people.
Just keep opening the conversation. The things that will drive these things, public opinion is very important, but I think also the money that's made goes somewhere.
Yeah.
It goes somewhere. And it's laundered somehow.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely not coming back here where the problem... This is a funny thing. Where it's happening, you would think that's where you would see the... No, that's not where the money's going.
And what happens then is it kind of... What sort of initiatives is that money funding?
Do you know what? I always think about like bank robbery films, right? Yeah. When they say after they've committed a bank robbery, don't go driving around in a Ferrari. Yeah, don't be stupid, right? Where are the Ferraris? Look for the Ferraris, people.
Disclaimer on that.
Disclaimer again. Sorry, if you own a Ferrari, you're not a bad person. Oh man, honestly, Tim, this has been really fun. And it's been really insightful. I personally believe that so far, and I know I say this from time to time, but I genuinely mean it every time I say it. This has been the best podcast that I've done. Without a doubt. Before this, my favourite one was probably with Festus from the police. Yeah. That was a wonderful podcast where I talked about so many hard-hitting things with him. But with you, I mean, I just feel like I found a kindred spirit in you as well. Someone who I share the same sort of goals and mentality with, and I think this is going to be the start of something beautiful. We're going to do some cool stuff, and hopefully we can change stuff for the better for people. Is there anything that you want to talk about just quickly before we wrap it up?
So there are two things. So the first one is at Signposts, we're running a campaign at the moment. It's our 10 by 100 or 100 by 10. And what we're trying to get is 100 people to donate £10 a month for a year. And if anyone wants to be one of the 100,
I will sign up right now. After this, we'll sort it out.
Awesome. We'll get some details on Deadpool's site. But also, I've got a question for you, Deadpool.
Okay.
All right.
So, this is weird. No one ever asked me questions.
I had two, but one of them we kind of answered already. So this one is, what's your mood right now?
What's my mood right now? Honestly, it's very bad. It's very bad. I'm not going to lie. I try not to reflect on it too much when I'm in the suit because I've got to be happy when I'm in the suit. Do you know what I mean? I've got a sort of persona that I've got to be for people. I'd like to be authentic, right? But, if anyone asks me a real question, this is the problem because I'm authentic. If you ask me a real question, I've got to give you a real answer. So yeah, I'm not good. I'm not good. I'm not going to lie. I'm not good. I struggle with PTSD a lot in my personal life, and wearing all of this helps massively. It actually eliminates I don't get flashbacks or anything when I'm in the suit.
Awesome.
So that's good. But yeah, now on a personal level, now things aren't particularly good at the moment. I'm struggling. You know what? I tried to go to the Luton game on Monday, right? And it's like one of the first times I've really been out in a while, like as me, because I don't do anything as myself. So I've got like anxiety and stuff like that sort of prevents me from leaving the house sometimes. And when I was at the Luton game, I left before half time. Like I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I don't know. It was just too much, and I wanted to be in the suit again. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and so honestly and beautifully, and just highlights the need for us to talk.
Yeah, you're right.
This stuff.
You're right. That's why I do. I don't really want to talk about my personal stuff. For obvious reasons. I'm anonymous. Firstly, don't really want to talk about my personal stuff. But at the same time, I do understand that if I can show you a bit of vulnerability on here, I'm a big man, and like I come from Luton. I know gangsters. Do you know what I mean? But I still hurt, and I'm soft sometimes, and I cry all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. If I can show that to people, maybe they can feel like it's okay as well.
Emotion. We laugh, we cry. They're just opposite ends of the spectrum, and it's normal.
Yeah. Well, I've got to ask you, how are you now, Tim?
How's my mood?
Yeah.
Oh, this morning it was a bit flat. I was feeling a bit low. Got a few health issues that I'm working through at the moment. Nothing serious, I hope. But I work with a therapist. I do counselling, and I had a session before today, and that.
Oh, I had mine this morning as well.
Yeah, so that really helped me today to see that actually some of the things that I'm doing normal. That's what people do. That's how people react to what's going on. So yeah, my mood is quite good today.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah, I'm trying to move away, and I'm trying to challenge anyone who tells me they feel fine.
Yeah, because that's a lie.
Because it means nothing.
So it's a lie. That's what it is. Because you never just feel fine.
Exactly.
You can never feel content. Is a feeling you get when you're on a beach somewhere and you're drinking a nice cold drink. Do you know what I mean?
That's my happy place.
That's like a nice that's fine. Like fine is when there's nothing wrong, but there's always something that's going on.
Exactly.
No matter what, for anybody. And yeah, like you say, I really value you saying about talking and having a therapist, because I do as well, and it is super important. My session this morning, I talk about this stuff all the time about how I feel about it, and like how it's impacted my normal life, and like the pressure and all of that sort of stuff. And you know what? If I didn't have a therapist, the pressure would crush me.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I highly recommend to anybody out there, if you're struggling, reach out to a friend, a co-worker, go and get counselling. Seriously, if you're struggling, definitely. Do you know what? I'd even say if you're not, even if you're not, because you know what you're going to get out of a counsellor, which you might not get all the time out of everyone else, is their attention.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
They're there to listen to you, and they don't judge. And I think that's and they will help you. Yeah. So absolutely, absolutely advocate that.
No, that was brilliant though. Seriously, man. Thank you so much for having me here.
Worries. Can I have a hug?
Oh, dude, let's have a hug. Let's have a hug. Seriously. Friend for life right now. I promise you, Tim. I'm here for you forever. And I wish you all the best on your health journey. And, if you ever need anything, you got my number. Likewise. Give me a shout.
We're always here to help.
Perfect. All right. Love you, Luton. See you soon, everyone. Bye. Oh, that was such a good podcast, man.